Marsha Hampton, Assistant City Manager with the City of Douglasville. Welcome to our monthly faith-based meeting, and thank you for our Daystar Tabernacle and your church family for inviting us and hosting us this morning. We're going to change the program just slightly a little bit. Mayor Persons, who you know is always with us, and he usually provides the closing comments for us, will actually provide the opening comments for us. And following Mayor Persons, we will have some ladies from the Department of Family and Children Services. For those of you who may or may not know, November is National Adoption Month. And I know sometimes, specifically around the holidays, we're all looking to support charities and support families who are in need, and children are greatly in need during this time of year. We know foster and adoption is not for everyone, but we do think it's an important topic to cover, specifically since it's recognized nationwide, and we do know that there are families who are out there who can contribute in that way. So we will have Jessica Sherman and KARI HOLLADAY who are here to give a brief presentation as well as answer any questions on the topic and specifically how it relates to our area here in West Georgia. And with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Persons.
Thank you, Ms. Hampton. And as Ms. Hampton said, usually I'll close with some brief comments, but I'm going to open with some brief comments because I've got to leave to be in Atlanta a little bit, but did want to take and come to be here today with the Daystar Tabernacle, who is hosting us, and we certainly appreciate you hosting us today. You have a lovely facility, and we thank you for allowing us to be here and share your facility and your great hospitality. Kudos to the ladies back there. I've had an opportunity to get into some of that homemade biscuit, and it is excellent. So thank you for allowing us to be here today. As most of you have heard me talk about before, the faith-based program that we established going on 2 years ago now when I first got elected, and we've had very active participation with the local community, not only with the faith-based group, but also many other civic organizations and social organization groups. So we're glad to have their participation within our faith-based group also. The topic that we're going to talk a little bit about this morning is something that's very near and dear to me, and that's foster care and adoption. And you may be asking, well, how could foster care or adoption be of any real large concern to me? Well, it is very near and dear to me because, you see, 33 years ago, we adopted a young lady. We started working with the Georgia Baptist Children's Home about 33 years ago, and where we were going to church, and our church started an effort where we started working with the children's home and working with the children and kids that either didn't have parents or had parents that had put them either in foster care or with the children's home, something similar to foster care. So we became very active and very engaged in that process, and from that, like I said, 33 years ago, adopted a young lady who was 15 at the time, who is our daughter, oldest daughter, and has 4 beautiful grandkids. So it is something that's very dear and near to my heart. And I would encourage you to pay careful attention to what these young ladies have to say, because there are a lot of youth out there that need somebody to mentor to them, to take them into their homes, to love them, and to care about them. Certainly they see more than we do, but certainly the society that we live in today, the children need good, positive role models. And for the churches to be involved, I can't think of a better group to be involved in foster care. And then if you feel so inclined or led at some point in time then to adopt one of these children. One of the things that when we were working with the children's home, we saw just a lot of things that would break your heart. But there was one little kid there that kind of the Dennis the Menace type. And seemed like every weekend that we would go to either get one of the children or later on to pick up our adopted daughter, this little kid be sitting on the doorsteps of one of the cottages, and he'd have his bags all packed. And he'd be so excited because he'd say, you know, my daddy's going to come pick me up today. And then we would go back either later in the weekend or sometime the next week and would talk with the cottage parents and ask them how it went with little Dennis and on his trip home with his dad. And they said, you know, he never showed up. And then sometimes we wonder what happens with some of these kids and how they become what they become. So I would encourage you to pay careful attention to what these ladies have to say. Foster care, adoption is a great thing. I can vouch for it personally. And so thank you for what you do. Thank each and every one of you for being here today, participating, and take this information, take it back to your individual faith-based communities, and then who knows what may happen. So thank you very much, Marsha. And I really appreciate what you're doing with the faith-based effort. Thank you.
With that, ladies, you want to come on up?
Good morning, everybody. I'm not used to it. I wasn't thinking I was going to be using a microphone, but it's kind of fun, actually. I need this at home with my kids, a microphone occasionally. You know what I'm talking about, too, right? Well, I just want to say thank you for that wonderful, wonderful testimony story. You can hear all the facts and all the statistics about the kids in foster care and the kids that are free for adoption. But until you actually hear a story from somebody who has been personally touched by foster care or adoption, that's when it kind of gets that little feeling in your belly. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that because we do see it on a daily basis, but when we get to see the true effects of it in the community amongst you guys, it really shows that we are here to make a difference. My name is KARI HOLLADAY. I'm with Region 3 with the Cherokee County Department of Family and Children's Services. That's where I am housed, but I do recruitment and resource development through the entire region of the northern half of the state. So that would include Douglas County. We also serve Paulding, Haralson, Polk, Floyd, and Bartow County. So we have a lot of ground to cover, and we are in need of a lot of foster and adoptive parents and volunteers and people that you may know that can help us serve these children. So why are we here to recruit people you know and people in the community for foster and adoptive parents, volunteers, and mentors? Currently in Douglas County, we have 115 children that are in the state's custody. How many foster homes do you think we should have with that many kids? Anybody want to take a wild guess? One for each. That would be perfect, right? Well, we currently only have 32 homes in Douglas County. So you kind of do the math in your head and you think, wait a minute, 115 kids, 32 homes, that doesn't really add up. So what happens in a lot of our counties, and specifically in Douglas County, is a lot of our kids get placed out of county. When they get placed out of county can mean Richmond County in Augusta. Out of county can mean Muskogee County, down in Columbus, down at the Georgia Baptist home. And so what that means is that these kids are not only being removed from their home for various reasons, but they're also being removed from the connections that they have in their life. Their churches, their friends, their schools, their neighbors, okay? And that's a traumatic experience for our kids. So we really have come up with this new renewed charge for ourselves as a region to get out and speak as much as possible in regards to the need for foster and adoptive homes and mentoring and volunteering, okay? So the mission statement of the foster care program within the state of Georgia is to strengthen families and protect children from further abuse and neglect, and assure that every child has a permanent family. Now, when we say permanent family, guys, that's more than just a mom and dad that's in a home, okay? That's more than just the family unit. Permanency for a child involves their entire community. And we really feel like it's our responsibility to take care of these children when someone else isn't able to do that. And that's why we enjoy speaking to the faith-based community, because you guys get that. You understand the importance of that, and you understand the importance of a community taking care of the children when they can't be taken care of. So the goal of the Division of Family and Children's Services for children includes that safety for all the children, providing for the well-being for all the children, and the permanence for the children in the foster care system. They belong to all of us, okay? Whether they're your biological child, your neighbor's child down the street, or the children that come into your nurseries every Sunday at church, okay? They belong to us, and they're our responsibility. So we want to do what we can to make sure that they get that permanency and that well-being. The significant needs that we have, guys, currently with kids in foster care are sibling groups, okay? We have many sibling groups, and a sibling group is any sibling group of 2 or more. We sometimes on any given day have a sibling group of 6 kids that comes into care, or we just have a sibling group of 2. Regardless, we don't want to split them up ever, because they've been removed from their home. The last thing we want to do is split them up with the one connection that they still have, okay? Think about the connections you have with your siblings, okay? Sometimes they're all you have, okay? But we have a hard time placing siblings. We really do. Now, I'm not saying you should come or you should encourage, others. You got to come and you got to take a sibling group of 6. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that's one of our biggest needs, our sibling groups. Teenagers. I love that you adopted a 15-year-old. That's like, I was hanging on every word you were saying when you said that she was 15. Because guess what? A 17-and-a-half-year-old family as much as a 2-year-old. Okay? I've seen a young man who was a month away from his 18th birthday and was adopted the month before he turned 18. That's all he wanted. And it was like the best day of his life. You'd think he was 5 years old on Christmas morning, okay? We know that adults even need homes. Our teenagers, they're experiencing a lot. And then you add the trauma of being in foster care, and it adds a whole nother level. So teenagers are a huge, huge need as well, okay? We also have a great need for respite care, which would be another word for it's a fancy word for babysitting, okay? We need homes that can provide temporary care and relief for our current foster and adoptive parents, okay? Some of these parents, they have 4 and 5 kids in their home. They need a break. They need a break mentally, physically. And so we're looking for families that can provide that respite care, even if you just come in and that's your specific goal, or as a volunteer, okay, what we call a natural helper, to do babysitting to give them a break on the weekends so that they can be refreshed, get those kids back, and be able to continue to meet their needs. So that's another big need that we have right now. And I'll do a little question and answer at the end, too, if you guys have any. I tend to talk, and again, I told you the microphone, it's like really making me talk a little bit more. So other needs that we have, if you aren't interested or somebody comes to you and says, you know what, I don't feel like I can open my home completely as a foster and adoptive parent, there are plenty of volunteer opportunities within our agency. And it's something that we're really trying to explore more now than we ever had before. We used to really just target foster and adoptive parents, and then we started to realize that the more people that a child had in their life, in every aspect, okay, the better chance they had of going home or finding permanency, okay, doing better in school, doing more activities, being more outgoing and self-confident. So that's why we've really tried to recruit volunteers through mentoring Okay? It used to be the old, we just referred everybody to the Boys and Girls Club, okay? Or Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Well, I remember back in 2004, I've been doing this since 2000, all of a sudden, Big Brother and Big Sister started getting a waiting list. And the waiting list got longer and longer and longer, and then, you know, a couple years later, the waiting list was like 3-year waiting list because they didn't have enough people. So what we've seen is that we can have people come and directly affect these kids through a volunteer program, okay? And, you know, that can include anything. That can include, you know, offering up tutoring services for some of these kids that we no longer have the money to pay for. We used to, not anymore, okay? Tutoring, you know, assisting with donations for extracurricular activities, outreach programs. We did a great outreach program with a local, actually my son's elementary school, where all the kids got to pay $1 to wear their uniforms for gymnastics, baseball. They got to wear them to school. So they each paid $1 or a flat donation. We wound up raising, I think it was like $1,500 or something. That we were able to take that money, give it towards the kids in Cherokee County, or we can do that in Douglas County, to put towards extracurricular activities. These kids don't even get to do things like that usually unless somebody's paying out of pocket, okay? So things like that, it's really about thinking outside the box, looking at your congregation, looking at the people in your community, and kind of seeing how can I help, okay? It doesn't have to be, I have to be a foster parent, okay? It can be these small opportunities that can make a huge difference in these kids. Another thing that we are, again, exploring that we hope will work well, and we think that we know will work well, is recruiting you guys to be a part of our county-specific recruiting team, okay? So you see me, I'm here, and you see Jessica. We're only one person, and there's a whole lot of you guys, okay? There's a lot of churches that we would love to come to on any given Sunday and provide information sessions, okay? Speak on behalf of the agency and these kids, but there's only 2 of us. So if you ever have an interest of being more involved, we would love to have you as part of our recruitment team. You let us know what you've got going on. We'll correspond with you. We'll partner with you with the information that we want to provide, and you can do it. You can do it for us. Because if you have, the intent and the heart and the passion to speak about it, you go for it. We're all about it because we are only 2 people, okay? And it's about education because some of us like to get caught up in our little bubble. Y'all know what little bubble I'm talking about? And sometimes we forget about all this other stuff that's going on. So the more people that we can have speaking about this and spreading the word about the need, the better, these kids will be. Okay? So that's another opportunity if you're interested in. You can certainly talk to us about it, and we can go from there. So we talked about our volunteer opportunities. We talked about briefly on the orientations. Generally what we do, guys, is we do a monthly orientation session or an information session. We do it in our counties, but recently we've had some great successes going to churches and speaking after your morning service or your evening service on Saturday night or whatever, and setting up an information table and doing a brief. Now, generally our orientation sessions go, an hour to an hour and a half. We have condensed some of them for all of our church-going friends to like 30 minutes. Okay, we can condense it even more if we need to, and then we're there to answer questions for them. So if that's something you guys are interested in, again, we have our information. You've got the handouts. I've got my business card there. Please let us know. Even if it's something you just want to try, okay? We would love to come out and do that, okay? So that's something that we can talk about too. I think I've covered just about everything. As far as the requirements, if they do decide, or if anybody does decide that they want to go through the process of becoming a foster and adoptive parent, those are things that we can talk about at those orientation sessions or those information sessions. Now, if any of you are just like, feeling it this morning and you have questions, you can let me know too, and I can go over the requirements. There are specific training requirements that the families have to go through. Lots of paperwork. Do you still remember the paperwork? But, and even, the logistics of the volunteers and the natural helpers. There's a couple little things that you've got to do, background checks, things of that nature, just to make sure that we've got the right people servicing these children. But those are all things that we can go into more detail when we do these information sessions at your churches. So that was mainly what I had. I wanted to kind of touch on the basics. We could probably talk about this for like 3 days because we feel so strongly about it. But we just wanted to come today so that you could take this away with you and just start thinking, okay? That hopefully in the next, in 2014, that will be our year to partner and do something to make a change in these kids' lives. We really have taken this on as a big challenge, but we feel like the more people know, the more likely they are to help in any way. So we feel like 2014 is a good year for our kids that are going to be with us, especially with all this bad publicity lately. Anybody seen that? Yeah. I try not to watch it really because you never really know. You know how it is. What you see on TV usually isn't the case. So that's why we want to make sure we're spreading the word and we're getting great people to come and assist with these kids and continue to care for them and strengthen them and find them permanency that they deserve. So that's where I'm at. Do you guys have any specific questions? Yes.
Appreciate you coming and sharing about this topic that I've been burdened with for a while. And my wife and I talk about adopting ourselves, and we're trying to figure out, do we have to get all our kids up before we do that? But nonetheless, it's very much a topic of burden for my heart personally. And I really get very tired of the church hearing about the kind of needs that exist out there, and government agencies, the ones that have to deal with it, when the church really ought to be stepping up, standing on behalf of the kids that have these kind of issues. So I'm really interested in the church getting involved in it, and to tell my own sense of how to get involved in it. I'm two things I'm wondering. One, very practical. Is our point of contact in this county with DFACS? Is that who the point of contact is?
That would be me.
That would be you? Okay.
Yes.
The second one is, what are the things that prevent people from adopting other than general selfishness? I mean, what are there issues about the adoption process or fostering that makes it difficult, or why is there such a gap in your own estimation?
Well, I think, there's a lot of paperwork that's involved, okay? And I think a lot of people tend to get frustrated with that piece of it. But, as far as why people don't want to adopt, that's such a personal decision that, I think it's one of those things that you have to eventually just wake up one morning and decide we're going to go ahead and go through the process. What we try to do at DFACS is to support you through that process. That's part of the impact process, which is our training, is the mutual selection, okay? The whole process is a mutual process between DFACS and the potential adoptive family. There's always going to be hang-ups. It's, you're working with the government, and there's going to be loopholes here and loopholes there, but we try our hardest. Once we've identified a match for these kids with an adoptive family, we try our hardest. We expedite that process as quickly as possible. You're dealing with many different, the courts, various agencies that sometimes can slow the process, but we have, they're doing a new juvenile code rewrite. It's all the juvenile laws being changed, which actually will help that process because it is going to expedite the permanency for these kids. No more cases that are continued. Nothing, no lawyers that can say, you know, let's put the hearing off for 6 more months, and then that 6 months that the child can't, you know, is still free for adoption. So although we're working against a lot of those things that we can't control, we're doing our best to expedite that as quickly as possible, working with the families.
Is it a particularly restrictive environment for the families of the kids that are doing the fostering or the adopting? Is it, and I'm just, from your own estimation, not that you have to give testimony to fact, but I mean, just from your own sense of it, do families say, oh, there's too many rules, too many restrictions? It's hard to do.
Yes. Oh. Yes, of course.
I'll try to be brief, but this is something that I am passionate about. And one of the reasons that we talked about putting the faith-based group together is just like you said. So many times we look at, well, you know, the government's doing this or the government's doing this, but the government's not the total answer to everything that we need. And who better to minister to the needs of our communities than the churches? And if the churches are not doing it, then who does it? Who do we expect to do it? Do we expect the social agencies to do it? Do we expect the government to do it? And it's our community. And the churches should be the bedrock and the grounding of our communities. And if the churches aren't doing it, who does it? Well, that leaves us. That leaves the government. And we say we don't want government intrusion, government involvement, government this and that in our lives. But if the churches aren't involved in the community, if the churches aren't reaching out and ministering certainly to these needs of these kids, then the government's got to do it. Because we can't leave them in some of the environments that they're in. So, and it is a commitment. It is, and it's not something everybody's cut out to do. But the churches, you don't have to take and bring them home. You can go and minister. You can be there on a part-time basis. You can go on a Saturday, a Sunday, sometime during the week, and start to get involved. And it's amazing when you do what happens. It's just like what happened with us with the homeless situation. And it was commendable for our churches that were going by, dropping off food, dropping off firewood, picking up their clothes, taking them home, washing them. But what were we doing? Were we fixing the problem? Were we getting people back into the community? Were we finding them jobs? And you've heard some of the success stories that have come out of your efforts and what was done with the homeless situation. Now, it doesn't go away. You know, somebody said a long time ago, a lot better than I can say it, you know, the poor will be with us always. But so will the homeless, and so will the needs of these kids. But if we're ministering and sending food to here or there or whatever, but we've got needs and kids in our own communities that are hurting, that are stressed, nobody's caring for them. And again, who better to do it than the churches? And that's where we got involved, like I said, 33, almost 34 years ago. Lady sitting right here, Miss Mary Bunch, we were going to church together at a local church. And I don't know if Mary was the one that was involved in helping get it started or whatnot, but the thing was, let's get involved and let's start going to the Georgia Baptist Children's Home to work with these kids, maybe bring one home for a weekend. And there were, I don't know, Mary, do you remember how many parents or how many families got involved in that program?
Probably at least 10.
There were about 10 families that got involved. And there were some really unique stories that came out of it. And everybody didn't adopt one of the kids. You know, I'm kind of wacky, I guess. I don't do anything halfway. I get real passionate about it. But we went down there not to get, I guess, really to adopt a kid, but we got involved through our church and reached out. And, you know, one thing led to another, and we, like I said, we eventually adopted a 15-year-old who is now, and some of you hear me refer to her, she's our oldest daughter. And if you saw my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, my wife together, you wouldn't know there was any difference. We have 4 beautiful grandkids by her. Now, everybody, all the 10 families didn't do that, but so many of them reached out and made a difference in those kids' lives. And that's what we're looking for here. Can it be a little cumbersome sometimes? Is there a little paperwork involved? Oh, yeah. But anything worth doing is not easy. And we're talking about reaching out, making a difference in kids' lives. And if we don't reach out and help the kids, they're our next generation. They're the ones that are going to take over after we leave. And if we're not ministering to them and reaching out to them and making a difference in their lives, and you can. And like I said, who better to do it than the churches? And if our faith-based community is not ministering to our community as a whole and reaching out and making a difference with these kids, then it's either the government, and we say we don't want the government to do it, but that's the purpose of this faith-based group. Because the government can't do it by themselves, you can't do it by yourselves, and the community as a whole can't do it by itself. But if we all pull together and work together, it's amazing what we can do. And that's what the faith-based effort's about, is pulling the churches together. And you keep hearing me say it, the faith-based, the faith-based. And you've heard my thing about separation of church and state. We're not talking about any specific denomination. We're not talking about any specific church. It's the faith-based. And the majority of the world has some type of faith. And the majority of the world reaches out to those that are less fortunate. And we know who we are and what we believe. But we've got to exhibit it. And that's part of what the church is about. So I applaud what you're doing and what you're doing. But they can't do it by themselves. You have how many counties?
7.
7? And there's how many of you taking care of 7 counties?
3.
3 ladies, and you have 7 counties. Now, the 130 kids you said, or is that all 7 counties? Is that just Douglas? That's just Douglas. So guess what? There's a kid for every church in our community. Yes, sir.
What kind of money is being allocated for that? I mean, you got two or three people working, and you got a multitude of counties you're trying to cover and service.
Yeah.
What kind of money is being allocated for that?
And see well, and that's a good question, but that's another point too. Government, believe it or not, is being faced with, just like your individual homes, your individual churches, cutbacks, shrinking in revenue, shrinking in dollars. So who suffers? But think about this. If every church in our community, and when I say adopt, like I said, you don't have to take them home, you have to keep them. You can take them back. Trust me, I saw people take them back. Our experience, we saw somebody that they literally started out in foster care. They kept this young man, kept him 2, 3, 4 years. The lady couldn't get pregnant. The lady got pregnant. Guess what they did? They took him back. So, if it doesn't work, but you don't have to take them home and keep them for 35 years. What if you just go and stay 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 weeks? Show them somebody cares. Show them somebody loves them. You'll be touched and reach more back than the kids will. So I've said enough. I said I wasn't going to say but a few words, but try it. Try it. If each church would adopt a few or just take on, like I said, when I say adopt, you don't have to take and keep them. Get involved, participate, help these 3 young ladies out. If every church in our community would reach out and take one. I don't know how many churches we have, but I bet if you look at our whole community, take 2, take 3. Or just say, hey, we're going to run down, we're going to pick them up, we're going to take them to a ball game. We're going to bring them home for the weekend. Show them what a loving family's like. Take them to church. Have that influence. So I didn't mean to take it away, but it's a great program. Get involved. Yes, sir, Pastor.
We came out with the 501(c)(3) with the government intermingling with churches. So I was wondering, why would we do that if we don't allocate money for that particular need or service? Because that's kind of stressful and duressful what they're doing if you got 7 counties with 3 people in it. I thought the purpose of the 501(c) was to allocate money for churches to do certain things and services for the community.
Now, I can't address
That's why I asked you
what they're doing as far as giving monies to the churches. That's another, and I guess that's what you're asking, right?
I thought that was the purpose of the 501(c), that the government would recognize a nonprofit organization and give them money to do that.
Well, now, I don't think the government actually, because there's some restrictions that the government or we have as far as actually giving money to a 501(c)(3). A 501(c)(3) is set up so that it's a nonprofit.
Right.
But you can take donations from individuals or companies or that type of thing. But we as the government are very restricted as far as us being able then to give taxpayer monies to 501(c)(3)s to do certain things
I
with.
didn't know that. I thought the money
Yeah.
was allocated for that.
No. I'm not aware of it. Are you a federal, a state, or a federal level that
No.
that's allocated for?
No, and that, that's also why we don't focus, so much on the monetary donations, because what we're needing is time. We're needing people's time. We have specific money budgeted for this, that, and the other, for services for these kids. What we're looking for is recruiting people's invested interest in doing these various things that we talked about. So, like we said, if you were asking about going in recruitment, we don't necessarily have recruitment money. We find that our best recruitment is word of mouth. Our best recruitment is coming and talking to you fine folks, and then you talk to somebody else. And then they're going to talk to somebody else, and they're going to talk to somebody else. They may not come and visit us at an orientation next week, but they may come 6 months from now.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, of course.
I'm trying to give me some insight on. I've seen people write proposals, and the government will give them money under 501(c) to carry out mission. Matter of fact, I know some pastors who have done that and got monies to train on computers or whatever the case. So maybe I got a misnomer about how you get money from the government under 501(c), because I've seen pastors write proposals and they allocated money to really enhance it.
Right. And I'm not
So that's good. I need to know that.
talking about that, but I think the biggest thing we're looking at here, and it's the thing that we got involved when we participated, nobody gave us anything with it. We went and did it of our own and started out spending time and then got more involved and literally adopted. And, there was no monetary.
All I was trying to do is just clear it up.
Yeah. But the government, like I said, we as the when I say as the government, I'm talking about the city of Douglasville. We don't have first of all, we're legally restricted from donating specifically or giving specifically for that. Now, as far as state grants or federal grants for equipment and stuff like that, that's a different thing. But I think what we're talking about today is getting involved in the kids and the kids' lives individually, either through visiting, role modeling, mentoring, and then maybe eventually adopting. You may not decide that you're going at it to adopt initially, but if you're being involved, participating in kids' lives, and who knows what might happen. Does that answer your question any, or?
Well, I asked
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
What about this?
No, I hope I answered his question, but I don't know if I answered yours.
Well, you basically, yeah.
We don't have the money to
No,
give to the 501(c)(3).
When you talk about Douglas County, right?
Douglasville.
Okay,
We're
so
Douglasville,
I'm thinking,
and you're saying the state, the counties, or the feds don't have money to give to 501(c)(3) specifically, and that's not what we're really talking about.
okay, I'm thinking
And
federal.
And if you have specific questions about the requirements, like the paperwork and stuff like that, we can certainly talk afterwards.
Here was my, it's been a while since we were talking about this, so let's go back and remind myself of what we're talking about. But if there are obstructions to people being involved in the foster care system, I want to know, what can we do to help people overcome those obstructions? That's the reason for those questions. So that if we as a church say, look, and we're going to do this, we're going to have a campaign to get people to get involved in foster care or adoption, one or the other. But, it's one thing to put the word out there and to try to inspire people to be involved in it. But I think it'd be helpful to be able to say, and here's some things it's going to be difficult for you, And we've got some ideas about how to overcome that. So in order to come up with solutions, I was just asking, what are the obstructions, the difficulties people
Sure.
have in participating?
And those are things that when we do those orientation sessions, we take the time to talk about those because we pride ourselves on being very honest with the families when they walk in the door, because we're not trying to mislead people about the type of kids that you're going to encounter, about the paperwork that you have to deal with, the court hearings that you may be involved with, the process. We are very, very honest up front so that you can, at any given time during that process, from the orientation all the way through the training to the final approval, you have the opportunity to decide this is too much, okay?
But you're talking about the individual still? I'm thinking about the church.
Right.
How can we as a church say, you know what, we're gonna do this together?
Okay.
And we wanna be able to support, if a family wants to do it, we're gonna figure out a way to make it happen.
Right.
So, and if there are restrictions that a family feels like, oh, it's too difficult for me to do it, what about if we have a church said, together we're gonna do this, we're gonna help you?
Yeah, and that's a wonderful idea, and some private organizations do that, and I don't know if you guys have heard of Faith Bridge. Has anyone heard of Faith Bridge? I don't know that they service Douglasville or not, but they tend to have the church have lots of volunteers to help the families who do decide to foster or adopt. So that's definitely something you could do with any agency, whether it's with DFACS or with a faith-based private agency. If a church wants to encourage their members to minister in the community about fostering and adopting, then you can have people who volunteer to be approved for transportation. So if you have a two-parent home and they both work, a child gets sick and needs to go to a doctor, has an appointment, you might have another congregation member who gave us the needed paperwork to be approved to transport the children, and they can be there to support the adoptive or foster family. And they can help pick them up at school and take them to the dentist one day if there's an emergency situation where the parents can't get off of work. They can also be approved to help babysit, things like that for the family. They can be you can approach it any way you want to have other members in the church help the people who decide to move forward and foster or adopt. And I think that's a wonderful approach, a community approach, the entire church getting involved and not just one family.
There's some literature that kind of chronicles those possibilities.
Absolutely. Well, the Blue Forum tells all different types of ways you can volunteer in the community, whether it's fostering or babysitting or that sort of thing. Yes, ma'am.
We have to wrap up in just a few minutes, but I thought it would be best for the group because sometimes people don't actually know what the ultimate goal of adoption and foster care are, and they're different. So if you could explain that to the group, what the ultimate goal is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, to foster, it's also called partnership parenting. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but these are parents who, for some reason, either abuse or neglect has occurred in this child's life and they can no longer parent their child safely in their home. And it could be a family who's homeless, or it could be a family who has some drug issues or domestic violence. So there are all different reasons why they can't parent their children. So foster parents work to be a safe home for that child until they can be reunited with their parents. The goal is for the parent to work a plan, a court-ordered case plan, and to make steps to improving their situation, whether it be going to drug rehabilitation and remaining clean and free from drugs for a certain amount of time, or going to parenting classes. It might be obtaining a job and getting a home for them to live in. Things like that, and showing over a certain period of time that they can maintain stable living in order to parent a child in their home. So a foster parent is with that child and cares for them while the parent is going through the process to try and improve their life and to better their situation. An adoptive parent is someone who adopts a child after the parent's rights have either been legally terminated through the court or a parent voluntarily signs their rights away and they no longer have legal guardians other than the state. And we all know the state doesn't make the best parent in the world. That's why we need you guys. So an adoptive parent then adopts the child. And there are some people who get into it only to foster short term, just to help out until parents can get back on their feet, and then they end up falling in love with the kids in their home, and they become free for adoption later on, and they sometimes become adoptive parents that way as well. So, sorry we took up so much of your time.
I did just quickly want to tell you about the handouts. I do have business cards up here. I don't know if they got passed out around. Okay. You can email me. Now, you guys have these little tear-off flyers, okay? So it's got our information. It's county specific to Douglas County, that if you would like to hang them up around your churches, your businesses that you encounter, they're the little tear-off flyers that at the bottom they can take. This 877-210-KIDS is our main number. That's the number that is specifically through the state of Georgia, and it filters down to your different counties, okay? If you've got your color copy, if you want to make copies, if you want me to send you, I can send a bulk mailing to you guys with these. I can do that on an every couple month basis. You guys just let me know what you need. Your other handout, or the little booklet, this is going to be targeted to your volunteering efforts, all the different types of recruitment that your churches and your community can get involved in. You just have one of those. If you would like those specific, I can email you that, and you can print those out for your congregation. Or again, I can print them out myself in my office, send you a nice big, bulk mail of 100 or 200 or however many you need, okay? So any other information, any other materials that you guys would like, we have a lot. I only brought a couple of pieces for you guys, so I can easily email it to you or get that out to you very quickly. So you guys have my information. If you have additional questions, let myself or Jessica know after the meeting. And we appreciate it, guys. We just want to bring it to the forefront because it is, although it's National Adoption Month, every day and every month in the life of a child should be celebrated this same way. And so we really want to bring it to you guys' attention. And this Sunday, if you want to mention that Sunday is actually the official National Adoption Day, okay, please do that. We would love it if you would do that because we want to recognize these children on a regular basis. Okay? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Even though we have a small number this morning, a lot of things, you read in the Bible, of course, don't despise the day of small beginnings. If we had only 2 or 3 or 4 churches that began to do what we've talked about, then that might be the starting point that would branch out. Now, I will tell you that I have never been involved in adoption or foster care, but my wife, as most of you know, went home to be with the Lord back in May after 43 great years of marriage. She had a heart for people, and we took in strays. At any one time, we might have somebody who had a teenage boy that had nowhere to go, and he lived with us off and on for about 3 years. We had a family, a biracial family here in Douglasville that moved in with their 2-year-old son. I think they stayed 7 months till they got back on their feet. But my wife, the one that she really did that threw me a loop was I came home one afternoon from work and found out that there was a woman and a 5-year-old daughter who had moved into our house. And then my wife told me that she was leaving town the next day on a business trip. I said, this is not even a safe situation for me. So here I am for about 4 days, making sure that in the evening I go into my own bedroom and I lock the door so I'm locked in, simply so that to provide a measure of protection, so to speak, from being accused of anything. But the bottom line is that there are people who need help, and as we can help those people, then the Lord will certainly bless us for it.
I do want to say I hope all of you have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, Christmas holidays, and this season of the year, of course, is when people who are in need, the needs become even more acute. And we focused, of course, for a number of months now on the homeless, and this particular time of year, like I say, there are people who have needs. One of the things that we talked about last time briefly is that if you look at our focus on the homeless, then the reverse of that would be what can you do to provide housing. And one of the things that we are continuing to work on in Douglasville is looking at how to improve housing and provide housing. And since Ms. Hampton let me come up to make a few comments, I'm going to bring her back up to conclude today, but also she and another member of our staff, Patrice Williams, had been working on a project to help us move forward in the area of housing, and I'll let her talk about that, as well as talking about where we go from here and looking ahead to the new year with our faith-based group. Thank you very much.
As Bill said, I do wish everyone definitely a happy and a safe holiday. I hope that you enjoy your families and take the opportunity for what we've done here to reach out to somebody in need, to share a blessing with them as well. Housing, I think last time in our meeting I announced that we had applied for the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing Program with DCA, and I think I announced at that time that we were going to get it, and I was exacting my words. We did get accepted to the program. Thank you. We received that announcement shortly after last month's meeting. Patrice Williams, who is our community development manager, will be heading up that program. We actually have our first meeting, official meeting of the group, along with those folks from the state and the University of Georgia, the last week of February. So periodically as we meet, we'll be giving you some updates on that as well. As I said, the goal of that program is to provide a comprehensive plan for housing, and that's housing in any area that we have here within the city of Douglasville. The other is that as we move forward, we will take a break for the holidays. I know everybody's busy. We plan to meet back up. Typically, we meet toward the end of the month on a Thursday at 10 o'clock. We're always looking for host sites. Thank you, Pastor Horton, as always, for allowing us to be here, for serving us breakfast. And we do hope that you reach out to some of the folks who've missed some of the meetings and call them and tell them come, because I do believe that the information we provide is very valuable, and I hope that you feel as though it's valuable and you can take that back to your congregation. So we'll be looking for host sites toward the end of January of next year. As I said, again, have a wonderful holiday season. And Pastor Horton, if you want to come and give us the closing blessing.
Is everybody happy? Yes. It's going to always be all right. Look at somebody say, this has been a good day. And I thank God for it. Amen. We want to just pray. I believe that, just to make a comment, I know that a lot of churches are doing things now, because we put our hand to the plow on a lot of things in this area. We just don't talk about it a lot. But we know that God's going to open up other doors and new doors. And he's going to turn your oppositions into opportunities. Y'all just say that. Say, God's going to turn oppositions into opportunities. Amen. Father, we thank you for this time of fellowship, and you've already said that you're the God of all flesh, and there's nothing too difficult for you to do, and we are certainly made of flesh. So make us the vessels of the testimony, even dealing with the foster children and the faith-based communities, and cause us to come together. God, we ask that you bless our hearts and do well in our meetings, and give us understanding and insight, and allow us to set under the counsel of your anointing, that things might happen that will be beneficial for this community and even the surrounding areas, and even metropolitan Atlanta. We know that each new day is a miracle in progress. We do know that each new day is a miracle in progress. So God, you can even work with the foster children and set this up and make it all work, and we'll be careful and meticulous to give you praise for it. We know that the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few. So God, we right now solicit new laborers. And please help these dear young ladies covering seven counties with 2 or 3 people, God. We know that you can work in that also, and bring about hearts of people to come under their command, to help them expedite and do what they need to do. So Father, we thank you right now for this environment of love and this atmosphere of faith and this climate of favor. We all have favor. We are favorites. And God, we give you praise for that. And bless the people that are here today and those that did not have an opportunity to come. And bless all the churches around the city here in Douglasville and the counties in metropolitan Atlanta. There's a serious work to be done. We're living in the latter part of the last days. So God, you help us to understand that and give us insight that we might put our hand to the plow and get the work done. God bless the city officials of Douglasville and all that work together, all the assistants and those that make up the commissioners, God, and cause them to excel and do well. And we'll be careful and meticulous to give you the praise for it. In Jesus' name, everybody say it is so. God bless you, God. Thank you, cooks. Thank the members of Daystar for fixing food. Appreciate you. God bless you.